So Troy Dannen, who's the athletic director of Nebraska,
Yes.
he spoke with Amy Just. Well, and we talked about a little bit last week the rev share of it all and what's going on there. But there was another story that went up over the weekend that was titled, "Why is the Devaney Center reseating for Nebraska volleyball?" Troy Dannen has 3 reasons.
I thought this was a football topic, Mr. Football.
I know. Isn't that wild that we can start with volleyball, but it turns into a football conversation because football lives rent-free in all of our heads. All of our heads. Anyway, the volleyball portion of it is kind of interesting if we wanted to talk about that too, but they are going
But your name's not Mr. Volleyball.
No, it's Mr. Football. So because they're going to expand the Devaney Center. There's like old seats that are still there from the basketball days, and they're going to tear down that wall. Gorbabov's going to tear down that wall, and then they're going to have more seats. But one of the things that they're doing inside of that is they will be, and I love this, reseating, not reseating, because we're not talking about the college football playoff, reseating.
Yes.
And so they're essentially trying to line up donor dollars with seats. And he tells this story in here about someone who's given like a ton of money but doesn't have access to volleyball seats, and they're like, we got to find a way to fix this. Well, anyway, to football. Reading from Amy Just story. The sweeping renovations of the 102-year-old Memorial Stadium are on the horizon. And with that will come a reseat, one unlike ever before undertaken at Nebraska. That reseat, when it does happen, will eliminate the grandfathering of the exemption for seat donations. Here's Dannen. When football reseats, and football will reseat, there's a lot of that angst and aggravation that will come. Dannen added, in 42% of the football stadium, tickets are held by people whose seat requires a donation, but they do not make that donation because the seat has been grandfathered through away from donations, which amounts to over $20 million. $20 million. John, how much is the rev share going to cost?
20 and a half.
Interesting. I wonder why they're looking to do this right now.
I don't know.
That is bonkers. They're leaving that much money on the table?
This is the ultimate kick the can down the road subject for Nebraska athletics. This has been talked about for many years. Bill Byrne is the first that I can recall to bring it up. And, oh, my God.
Really? That was 30 years ago.
God, did people, boy.
About the grandfathering?
Yes.
So let's back up real fast. So when he brought it up, they had a seat donation that was tied, or was he the first one to create it?
That was like that was the beginning of having seat donations, where in the NFL, they call it seat licenses, but it's, if you want the right to those tickets, you have to pay a certain donor amount.
Correct.
So you can sit in certain places in the stadium. That started under Bill Byrne as a way to raise more revenues. And of course, back then,
it was new, and everyone hates new.
It was new, and everybody hated it. And they had to create a policy where that the people who had the tickets since the time the stadium was built and had passed down those tickets from generation to generation, that those folks would still be exempt from that. Now, fast forward through many generations and different athletic directors.
And that's still the case.
Slowly, and I mean slowly through time, as folks have aged out of the stadium, they've been able to recoup. I say recoup. It's not lost revenue, but it's revenue that they could have had.
They've been able to create revenue.
They've been able to create revenue, but as that article mentions, there are still 42% of the seats in that stadium that still fall under that grandfather clause.
Because I believe...
Because so, for example...
Yeah.
The Petersons have had Nebraska tickets in their family since 1940. And you're sitting in 50-yard line seats.
And that's a part of this too, right? Is a lot of the grandfather seats are for what part of the stadium? West Stadium.
Right.
The good seats.
Right. But the Peterson family sitting in those seats.
Wow, in the 40s, instead of going to the war.
Yes, exactly. The Petersons skipped out on the war so they could have season tickets for Nebraska football.
Trying to be like our future president.
Meanwhile, the Grimm family, who sits one row in front of you, because they bought their tickets in the 2000s.
Yep, they got to pay.
They're paying
buku bucks.
They're paying a huge seat donation.
And I believe that the seat donation, the best ones or the highest ones, are like $3,000 a pop.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So literally, you're sitting in the same spot in the same stadium,
but you're paying $3,000 a piece, and I'm paying $0.
And the Petersons, who skipped World War II so they could go to Husker games, But that's and that's happening all throughout the stadium. But you mentioned the thing that's really important is the West Stadium.
The West Stadium, because, and it makes sense, right? When was Memorial Stadium built? 1923. And so if you got in early, or certainly before the Bill Byrne seat tax came in, if you will, you were good to go and you were grandfathered. Now, I do believe, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, at some point within the last 15 to 20 years, they put in a rule that said if you can pass it one more time and then that's it. And so what I think happened was that people then passed it down to like a younger family member, so then they would hopefully keep it in their family for many, many years. One of my best friends, his family is like this, where they've owned seats for many, many years, and they have 0 seat donation. Meanwhile, my folks are in the new East Stadium, which is up top, so a seat that is way far away. And I don't remember what they pay, but they pay a couple $100 probably for the seat licensing or the seat donation fee. And I've always wondered, when would this change? And it seems like this is going to come in part and parcel with the renovation that is happening to Memorial Stadium as well.
Right, because the Dannen project, they're going to be renovating that, and they're going to use that opportunity to reseat. Same thing will be done when they do what it is they plan to do with Memorial Stadium. That'll be the perfect time, because if we get our levels in West Stadium, a lot of those seats aren't going to exist anymore, or they'll exist in a very different way. So it'll give them a perfect opportunity to say, okay, you want these nice club level seats and this club access, you're going to have to pay this much. And if those used to be seats in your area and you no longer pay the donation, sorry, we're either going to move you or you won't be getting tickets anymore.
So, I mean, obviously people aren't going to riot and protest about this, but how pissed off do you think some people are going to be?
Very. Oh my gosh, people are going to lose their minds about this.
Again, this has been something that has been fought tooth and nail for 30 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not willing to give that up.
That's why Dan is talking about this now.
I'd like to hear from some of these folks who these seats have been in their family for decades. Just to kind of get
and a lot of the excuse is going to be, hey, when this program was really down and needed help, my great grandpa and great grandma bought these tickets, and we kept them through the 40s and 50s when it was really bad. And
that's the thing. The people who are getting grandfathered in, it's not that they bought them before Bill Byrne put this thing into place. He put it into place in the 90s when they were great. So you're talking about people who have had season tickets for decades. Now, I'll be honest, I don't really know where I fall on this, because on one hand, I get that argument from somebody who say, whoa, my family has had seats going back to the horrible pre-Bob Devaney era, and you're telling me now I got to spend money? On the other hand, that's what happens with life. Things cost more money today than they did yesterday, and it will always be that way. And, I would almost say congrats on them doing this for 30 years. But times change, and eventually things have to change. And they're just trying to get what they think it is worth.
Well, and now you're going to be able to fall back on the excuse of, we need the money.
Exactly.
Because, and I'm not saying Dannen is doing this. Okay, so don't misinterpret this, but I have heard others who have implied that if we didn't have to pay those kids,
of course,
we wouldn't have to spend this extra money, then we wouldn't have to do this.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, I would say the timing of this is very interesting. Why now? I think that's a fair question for Troy Dannen. Why now? And he'll come up with a variety of reasons, but look, of course, they're leaving $20 million on the table, and the players are going to cost $20.5 million. Okay, that's pretty interesting that the numbers fit. Now, are they leaving $20 million? Like that's a lot of money. Do we think they're leaving $20 million on the table?
No, that's
if it's 42%, like how many season ticket holders do they have? The stadium seats, whatever, 70-something thousand. Season tickets aren't applied though to all of them.
They can say seats cost however much they want though.
But they have decided, Nick. Like you can look at a map of what the seat license fees are. Right. So if he's saying $20 million, we should be able to prove this
right now. But when that thing gets renovated,
it's going to be,
and those West Stadium seats get a lot different. I mean, they're a lot nicer. They are not going to be wood planks anymore. No. And there's going to be club access, and it's basically going to be like a sky box without a sky box.
Yeah, they're going to have access to a club.
Those kinds of amenities and accoutrements are going to be there. They're going to be able to ask a lot more than that same seat is currently getting now.
Correct. Because it's not just going to be the view. You're going to have the view and other
You're
stuff.
going to get the view and the experience.
Yeah. Which right now is just the view.
Because with that price, I'm not working on any inside knowledge, but let's just pretend.
Okay.
You got a pair of $5,000 a game seats. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get you all you can eat food, beverage options, tableside service, a big comfy chair, your own bathrooms.
Maybe you get a parking spot.
Similar to what they have built at a lot of new stadiums or what they did like at Wrigley Field. Those things are going to come with the elevated price of the ticket. Because right now, the only thing you can give them is the seat and the game.
Well, and here,
that's it.
Nick, I don't think you know this too, but a part of Memorial Stadium is the season tickets are the same price.
I did not know that.
My parents' seat costs the same much as a 50-yard line seat in terms of the ticket cost. So that's where the donation comes in.
Okay.
Because then the tickets are more expensive, even if face value is the same. Ian writes, they better get good before they institute this change. And that is, of course, the other part about all of this is, as you said a few minutes ago, a lot of these people who are being grandfathered in, they had season tickets before the program is good. And they could also make the same argument of, but I've been here the last 10 years when they have made it to 2 bowl games. They've won 22 games the last 5 seasons, and my family is still supporting the program.
This is the cost benefit of an extremely loyal fan base.
Yeah.
Would Nebraska be doing things like this if they were only filling half the stadium? No. But because there is a demand, forget about it. It's no different. It's no different than movies. If the Marvel folks want to just keep cranking out movies and cranking out movies and cranking out movies, whether or not the quality of the first Iron Man to what's the latest Marvel movie, or what's a bad Marvel movie?
Oh crap, I don't know. Ant-Man 2.
But my point is this:
the last Thor.
Absolutely that.
As long as the last Thor movie is bringing in the $400 million, there's no motivation to necessarily. I shouldn't say there's no motivation. You always want to do something good, but as long as it's making money, it's no longer about the quality of the product on the field, because the people have decided, hey, this is something I want to do to pass time. This is something that I want to support as an entertainment option. And whether or not it's as good as the first Avengers movie or as bad as the recent Thor movie, I'm still going to show up. And that's been Nebraska fans for the last 20 years.
Hell, even the Rockies, people still go to Coors Field, sells a lot of tickets all the time, and it's not because the Rockies are good.
This was the same phenomenon that faced the Cubs back in the 2000s when Wrigley Field became the place to go. Didn't matter what the team was doing. It didn't matter if the Cubs were in last place or in first place. Wrigley Field was the summer place to be. We had to be there. So they were there.
Fandom works against you. The fandom works against you because they're supporting you no matter what.
And so that's why you can emails like the one you just read or tweets like the one you just read about, well, they better get good before they do that. They don't have to be.
Unless the demand is actually not there and they're overplaying their hand.
Sure.
Unless they're going to say you're no longer grandfathered in, and they're, if suddenly they couldn't fill those seats, then that would be quite the play.
But something tells me that the demand is there.
They're going to be just fine.
The demand is there. I mean, they were already touting the number of season tickets that they had sold.
You don't think they could?
So it's still there.
Knock down the price until they get good and then jack it up. When Paige and I went to the Sunday game at Coors Field, we could walk right up to the thing and we got club seats for $30 a pop.
No, but that's not what it's about. They're not looking to do that. They're looking to get the season ticket holders that are paying the seat licensing fee. That's what they need. It's not about It's not about getting a game ticket. It's about getting the whole.
And right now they have. I mean, they wouldn't be. Dannen would not be going through this whole procedure right now if he didn't think there were people waiting to pay that money to sit in that spot and to be in that place in Memorial Stadium.
Couple texts. Doc says, if you support something no matter what, doesn't that mean it's a cult? And then adds, I honestly don't think there's that much demand for season tickets anymore. I'm 39 years old and I have no desire to buy season tickets, even if I was a millionaire. See, and that's like, I obviously feel that way. I don't go to games. But if you're rich and you got some disposable income and now you're getting something extra with the game, and something extra is the club level that
The
heretofore,
experience.
They're making it more of a status thing too.
They're adding
they are.
something to this stadium.
Yes, they are.
That they don't have right now.
That's absolutely it. Because right now, the only place you really get that is in the suites.
People love exclusivity.
Yes,
Exactly.
they do. And this isn't just a Nebraska thing. This is happening everywhere.
Correct.
All across all sports, where you're starting to get a lot more of a class system in place. That was that. We can romanticize it all we want, but that was kind of the beauty, and is the beauty of college athletics. And this could be at Ohio State, this could be at Michigan, this could be in Alabama, this could be at Nebraska, where every stadium was pretty much the same and they were all plank seats. You know, everybody was the same, from the guy at the 50-yard line to the guy sitting up in the top row of the south end zone. But those days are gone, because a lot of the business structure, the big business of college athletics now demands you're getting a pro-style experience. Hey, I'm paying $5,000 a pop for my tickets. Guess what I'm going to demand? More than just a place to sit and a view of the game.
Correct.
It's going to come with a lot more accoutrement.
Matthew writes, 50-yard line season tickets are like $3,000 per seat. Are grandfathered people only paying the $450? Yeah. They don't have to pay the seat.
Yes, the people that are grandfathered in are not paying a donation.
Just paying the season ticket.
Which is why I use the example. The Peterson family since the 40s, the Grimms who bought tickets in the 2000s. Grimm's family's paying $3,000 a ticket. Josh's is not, because they're grandfathered in.
By the way, I mentioned earlier, because we kicked this off by talking about volleyball, the other thing that really stood out to me was when Troy Dannen talked about the secondary market. He tells the story. I'll read it from Amy first before the quote. The season ticket holder, Dannen said, had 4 season tickets. The person paid the $300 seat donation for the seats, but didn't donate any other money to the department. Every seat, Dannen said, was sold on the secondary market for the 23 and 24 seasons. Remember, this is volleyball, which netted the person $34,000. Troy Dannen: I'm all for being entrepreneurial, but not at the expense of allowing the people that actually care about Nebraska athletics to be inside the building. Tickets are not an investment vehicle for, I wouldn't even call it fans, for brokers or investors. And there are 10 accounts like that. It sounds like this is something that they are going to try their best to get rid of entirely.
Well, how much you want to bet that some of those are brokers?
Bingo.
That, you know, they would rather have the rich Nebraska booster who actually wants to go to the game versus someone who's willing to pay the fee because they know they can resell those tickets on the secondary market.
And that was a part of the story in there where he mentioned someone in particular who has donated a ton of money. Somebody that donated $1 million 20 years ago and hasn't done anything since has a higher rank and ability to get those tickets than the person who is investing today. And so they are going to put an emphasis now on, are you investing today? Then you get access, versus someone who did 20 years ago. And look, I also understand that, because they're trying to reward donors of today, but they're also trying to get new donors by saying, here's a perk. You donate now, you're going to get volleyball tickets. You're going to get access to this great spot in Memorial Stadium, versus someone who, like you were around in the 40s, but sorry, we need the new money. I understand it, even if I know it's going to piss people off. But
and that's the most fascinating thing to me, especially when this stadium plan comes out and they announce the things that they plan to do, is how this market will react, because it will create an even greater divide between the so-called haves and the so-called have-nots, the so-called big booster fan and the guy sitting in the last row of South Stadium, and how that will go over in this state. These are things that if you're in a pro market, it's no big deal. Everyone does it. But this is different. It's different because it's never really been done here.
Correct. And that's what's new.
And you might say, well, then why does it need to be done? Well, again, it all comes back to money.